Welcome to Chapter 5 of Sports Business Management. We are talking today about managing staff performance, something that probably more managers, one of their probably weakest things that happens in a lot of organizations. Okay, so performance management. So the role of a manager is to plan, organize, direct, and control when it comes to their job. They don't really give a lot of insight into, well, how do you manage staff performance, right? And so part of that is how do you measure staff performance, which can be very difficult, especially in jobs that don't require numbers, right? So, for instance, if you have secretaries, how do you measure their performance? I mean, you give them a task, they complete the task, right? Now, are you giving them, some secretaries may have like 50 tasks a day they have to perform. Some might have 10, some might have 500. How do you define, because again, that position in different companies under different managers is going to have a lot of different requirements. And again, it may vary from day to day, right? So if you have a day where you only have 4 tasks, do you just stay there for 8 hours in case somebody calls on the phone? You think about things like that. And again, I'm not picking on secretaries. That's just that they're a universal position that's needed in every organization. So I was going with that particular example. Nothing against that. If somebody's listening, they're like, I'm a secretary, or my parents are, no, I'm not picking on that position. And, I believe it's a very needed position in pretty much every job that you can think of. Somebody's got to answer phones. Somebody's got to enter things into the computer, make, sometimes they make appointments and things for the different folks that work above them, and so on and so forth. Very vital job. But again, how do you as a manager judge that performance, right? Now, again, any of the stuff that requires like sales, you think of like personal trainers, how many clients are they meeting a day? How much money is coming in for that? All right, so you look at it that way, right? You look at the folks, how many gym memberships are you selling per day or per month? Okay, those are things where we can at least count on what they're doing, right? But again, how do you manage their performance, right? And again, is numbers just the performance when it comes to those positions too? Again, I always talk about this with you guys as students, is just because you're bringing in not a lot of new clients in your business isn't always a good thing, especially when you might be losing more on the back end of folks that are leaving, right? If on average you lose 20 clients a month due to poor management, poor performance by those that are working, especially directly with the people on the floor in your gym, but you're bringing in 10, say even 15 new clients, well, you're losing 5 clients. You're not netting any new clients, right? You're losing 5 clients a month, right? That's 5 clients of revenue that you're now subtracting a month. And let's say that you're breaking even. What's the point then? Right? You're not, if you're bringing in new folks, you're basically just filling gaps, right? The goal would be that you brought 20 in last month, you keep those 20, you bring 20 in this month. So, if you're trying to grow the business, you want to see profits go up and things like that. That should be the goal, right? You want to retain old clients and bring in new ones. And again, there's a lot of things that go into this, like your organization, their way they're structured, so on and so forth. But a manager, there are certain things as a manager you can do, whether or not it's demanded of you to demand on your employees, right? So again, what is the game plan, right? So as a manager, you got to understand the corporate game plan, and you got to make sure that your employees underneath you understand that. Do you have the right players on the team in the right position, right? There's that was one of those things that like I'll pick on Tim Tebow a little bit on here. I liked him as a quarterback in Denver, to be honest. But there's a lot of folks who are like, he'd be a great running back. The guy, his throwing, a lot of people don't like his throwing. Okay, fine. But he can run the ball and he always gets positive yards. Why doesn't he become, right? So maybe that's the thing. Maybe if he was a running back, he would still be in the NFL. I don't know. I mean, those are some things, when we look at sports, sometimes we move because there's a gap that needs to be filled. Sometimes they fill, and that's the thing too. Sometimes for your organization, a person's in the right position for the organization. They may not be in the right position for them, right? And that's, again, going back to him. Yeah, maybe in Denver or some other place, he could have been a running back, which would have been, a bonus for the organization. But it may not, he may have still left the NFL after a year or two, being moved to that position because it may not be right for him, right? So, I mean, really the goal that you want to have is that you have the right players in the right positions that's both right for your company and it's also right for them, okay? And so the same thing when you're looking at the employees that work underneath you, are they in positions that are helping the company? Are they in positions that are going to promote them to grow, right? Do they know what's expected of them in their positions? That's a big problem. A lot of times people are just like, if you ask them, what do you do? They'll list off like 5 out of the 30 things maybe they're supposed to, because that's all they know. Sometimes they're on the job training as they come in first day. They shadow a few people. Those few people, say it's a busy day, so they just do the nitty gritty, none of the extra stuff, right? And so then that's what they think they do. They don't know some of the other stuff that they're supposed to do when there's downtime, right? Is their performance measured in a formal way? Do you do eval or appraisal? Again, what we do here, because again, my deans can't watch everything I do. They don't come into my class. They don't know, I mean, they're busy doing so many other things that they basically give me an appraisal and say, and it has a list of things like, are you doing this well? Or are you not doing this well? Like what's your, how do you evaluate that? Like, do you think that you're doing a great job on this? Right? Are the players given feedback? So like when they're doing right, are you letting them know they're doing right? If they're doing wrong, are you letting them know they're doing wrong? Right? Are you helping mold their path of the direction you want them to go? And again, if there's changes that need to be made, you need to let them know that. All right. Again, here's some stats from 2012. Only 46% of people received feedback on their performance from their managers. Only 39% had conversations with their managers about training and development needs, and only 30% of employees receive on-the-job coaching from immediate supervisors. Right? And I mean, that's crazy. I mean, it should be at least above the 50% marks, but we're not on any of those. Right? And so a lot of times what people get is, as long as you don't hear from me, you must be doing okay, right? Until you've gone so far astray that they've got to correct you, and that's not really a good way to be. Having open book conversations of things going on. And that's the thing too. If you're a really good manager, your employees aren't going to fear screwing up. Like if you can, again, it's not about being buddy with the folks you work with, but if you're honest with them, they're honest with you, you develop relationships with them, like like a trusting relationship with them, then what happens is when they do make a mistake, it's not like you got to seek them out. They'll come tell you, hey, I messed this up, what do I need to do to fix it? That's what you want as a manager. If you can create an environment like that, that's the type of thing where things get done, things get worked out. Right? When you don't talk to them, they don't talk to you, or they fear you for whatever reason, and they're like, "Oh, we've got to cover this up," or hopefully, nobody sees what's going on. That's a problem, right? So again, open book philosophy. You be honest with them, they be honest with you. You have an open door. You constant communication with them. Okay. Succeed through the success of others, right? Sometimes managers feel threatened by those that work underneath them, right? And again, this goes to that whole, like, some people like, don't hire somebody that's better than you. That's stupid. Good managers hire good people. And if you hire somebody that's super successful, that shows good management on your part. Yes, may they jump your position? They might. And that's fine, right? I mean, if they're better suited for a job, best man or woman should get the job. That's just how that is, right? And again, that shows that you hired somebody right. You don't want to move up into a position that you're going to be inadequate in, because more than likely, you're going to slowly drown in it until you either get fired, or you got to quit, or you have a mental breakdown, or whatever else happens, right? You give yourself a heart attack. Okay. Good organizations are built on servant leadership model. This is basically do what I do, right? So if you want somebody to do something, you better be willing to go do it. You take care of your employees, right? So, you serve them, you help them succeed. That's what a manager is supposed to be there for. You got their back, right? Hey, you need help with something? I'm here to make sure you succeed at your job. And again, also just lead by example, right? If you don't have to talk to get things done. Sometimes it's just like, hey, this is broken, you go fix it. When they see that you're willing to go fix something and go do something that's maybe somebody thinks is demeaning, and they realize this is the culture we're in, they realize, by serving other folks and serving, the company and everything, that's how they'll, people pick up on that, right? So again, these are some steps to take in being a good performance manager. Clarify the job expectations we talked about, right? Make sure they know what they're doing, what's expected of them, and then check up on them, right? Check up on them every now and again. Like, everything going fine? What can I help you with? Is there anything you're still kind of fuzzy on? Again, if you're talking with them and they don't feel threatened by it, like, no, man, I'm cool. You don't want, you want to be like, yeah, I'm still having trouble with this login system on this thing. Okay, well, here, I'll show you again. Like, let's make sure you got that down. Hiring. I cannot stress the importance of hiring the right people, right? And that doesn't mean that they're the right people on paper, which again, there's certain positions where you have to have certain things. And so that's a no duh, but that they're the right people for your organization and for the group that you have and for the cohesion of that group and for the success of that group, right? Is so important. Training. Um, Everybody needs training, right? And the thing is, people are constantly need to be educated and re-educated. I mean, I constantly learn new things all the time, right? There's a study that a colleague of mine in research that is doing right now. We know that when people are generally dehydrated, when you do a bioelectrical impedance test, it's going to err in the fact that your body fat percentage is high. So she has been doing these like acute studies where people come in, they're dehydrated, and then they drink water and they look at like how it changes like 10 minutes after, I think, or 30 minutes, and then an hour after, and maybe 90 minutes at the latest, right? Well, she noticed that after they drink like a certain amount of water, and I think protein was the other, they have one group just doing water, another group doing water and protein, that your water now says on the bioelectric impedance that your body fat percentage is going up. Now, again, we are always like, okay, the more hydrated you are, it should, like conduct better electricity and go down. Now, again, her and I were having some discussions on why this might be going on, because our understanding of electricity does not vibe with what we're seeing. Now, my personal thought on this, until we can confirm, is that we also need to do hydration studies in the fact somebody comes in dehydrated like on a Monday, we have them really super hydrate for the next 2 days or 3 days, then they come back in on like a Wednesday, Thursday at the exact same time and see what happens, right? Because again, my thought is that water that they're taking in has not permeated enough cells, or and so all it's doing on the machine is saying, hey, you now weigh more, your body weight has gone up, but you're not conducting electricity any faster. So again, machines have to make an assumption with lack of anything going on. And the assumption on those machines is this person, and again, it's not a person going like, wait a sec, they just measured like an hour ago. It doesn't do that. It's just saying, okay, this person weighs this much. Their electrical conductivity speed rate is this. Somebody at 150 pounds with that speed rate probably has this body fat. Somebody at 155 pounds at that speed rate probably has more body fat. Right? There's something going on in there, and that's my theory, right? So again, how would we test that? Like what I said, you have somebody actually come in who's been hydrating for several, or you have subjects come in that have been hydrating now for several days and aren't coming in dehydrated. Nothing within within 3 days, as long as they're doing kind of the same thing they've been doing there, but it's not like their body fat percentage is going to change anyways. That should give you a better indication of how long it takes for your body to absorb water, get hydrated, and all that, right? And see if that's a reason. But again, it might not be. Maybe it's going to change our whole outlook on things. But again, reading research, you have to stay up to date on those things, stay trained. Measuring job performance. Again, there's ways to do this. Micromanaging is not one of those. Again, sometimes it's, there's different ways we can do. Like, so if somebody doesn't really have hard numbers you can go off of, you can just be like, okay, you can ask other staff, like, hey, how's he or she doing? Oh, they're great. They're always helping. They're doing this. They're doing a great job. If there's not really hard things to measure, you can ask folks, clients that deal with them, hey, how's your experience with so-and-so, right? That's why a lot of times when you deal with people on the phone, they're like, hey, if you can do a brief survey, that survey is part of their evaluation experience. Like, did they give you good customer service, right? Again, set goals, right? And again, not every position is really going to have much in the way of goals, but if you can set goals, if you can be creative in creating goals, for them, right? When you do goals, it's the same thing that we do when we're trying to help somebody lose weight or gain muscle or whatever we do in fitness, but we do SMART, right? We do SMART goals. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-based, right? We do that in every aspect of goal setting. Okay, it's even on the business side of things, right? Always provide performance feedback. So when you hear good things, let them know, right? Or if you see, like the numbers come in, let them know, whatever it is. If things are not coming in quite right, let them know that too. And see what you can navigate about fixing those things, right? But performance feedback, when you don't hear, you don't know. That's the thing. If you don't know what you don't know that you're doing it well. You don't know that you're doing it not well, right? Performance evals, right? And again, you don't want to. It's a catch-22 on this one. If you don't do them often enough, people get in a rhythm of doing things wrong or not up to par or however you want to look at it. If you do them too often, it becomes a headache for everyone involved, right? So usually with the performance feedback, it's almost best to do it, I think, twice a year. Now, the size of an organization and how many people you're managing, that may not be possible. You may have to do it once a year. But again, if it's something that's manageable, twice a year is probably good. If you want to do it every quarter, again, depending on the size of the organization and things and like how you go about it, you could. I think anything more than that's getting a little bit like almost micromanaging. Okay. So again, in the performance, there's, you're going to have the strengths, things that the needs improvement, ability of their work as an effective team member, problem solving, willingness to take initiative, so on and so forth. You may have technical knowledge of the job, customer service, meeting deadlines, so on. There's a lot of things depending on the job that they're in. Addressing performance problems. One, you got to look at somebody's not doing what they need to be doing. Are you completely sure they know what they're supposed to be doing, right? So were expectations clearly made? If so, can the performance problems be solved by training or coaching? So you try that first, and again, let them know like, hey, you're not doing this or you're not doing this right. Let's make sure you're trained on it. So, um, again, another thought process is maybe they're not in the right position. Like if you notice like they're just struggling at their position, maybe they're a great employee too. They're just struggling at that position. Yeah, sometimes like again, if you have open communication, your employees, you'll be like, I think this person's actually better suited for this than this, right? So you do that. And again, if you've got to change them to another position and you're able to do that, you should, right? Again, if they're a good employee, you want to keep them there, you do that. Recognize people when they do stuff. Or well, let's go with the bad stuff, or let's stay with that. I kind of skipped ahead a little bit. So again, provide frequent informational feedback, especially when it's like they're messing up. And again, there's a good way to do that. You don't have to be like, you screwed up again. But just let them know. And again, don't harp on anything, right? Remember, less is more. Nobody likes to be nagged, right? So again, don't say, like, man, yeah, you messed this up. Man, you always mess that up. Yeah, remember that one time you did, and then that other time. Yeah, nobody likes that, right? Again, be specific, right? In like where the mistakes were made. Remember that recent history is more helpful. So don't be like, like, remember 5 years ago when you did this too? God, doesn't help. And again, open dialogue, right? If they can come tell, I mean, that's really what it is like if they can mess up, like, again, if somebody didn't know they messed up, they're not going to come talk to you. But if they know they mess up and they have good open communication with you, that's really helpful because then you can like fix mistakes as they come, right? Again, define any specific or corrective actions that need to take place, whether it's training, maybe you got to reduce the hours they're working because they're like, yeah, I'm overworked, I'm stressed, whatever. Okay, okay, all right, well, let's give you some time off, whatever it needs. Or if there's disciplinary stuff, then, yeah, be specific. Again, always offer to help, right? You're their manager. Their success is your success, right? And it's always good to end on a positive note, especially, I mean, if you're wanting them to further, you don't want to be like, don't screw up again, right? Just be like, hey, you're doing a great job. I know you keep making this mistake. Don't be too hard on yourself. It's just something you're struggling with, but everything else you're doing great. Keep up the good work. We'll figure this out. Okay. So offer recognition, right? So again, most managers will like tell folks when they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. What they're bad at is not letting them know when they're doing great. Like, oh my gosh, you had record sales, or, man, I have so many people tell me what a great job you're doing teaching this class, or so on and so forth. Again, tell them as soon as possible. Don't be like, oh, yeah, 6 months ago, like all these people came in, they said you're doing so great, make it personal. If especially if it's like, hey, the couple of your students from your spin class, so and so and so and so, they said yesterday was the best class they've ever had. That they've been taking spin classes for 30 years. That was absolutely amazing, right? And again, make it meaningful. Just tell them, say, it's people like you that make this business successful. When we have awesome instructors like you, they're going to go tell all their friends, and because of you, who knows, your class of 20 might be a class of 30 come next week because you're doing such a great job. And that those 30 people now have memberships here, which then again lets us hire more folks. And again, when we're looking at raises, it helps, you're helping you as well as everybody else, right? Thank you so much. Again, that leads me to the next one. Say thank you. Sending a card or note is great. Sometimes people may, that's a weird one because again, depending on, some people might be like, is the manager hitting on me? Or, yeah, I mean, it's a little, we're getting this weird thing now where it's like, you can be thankful to people, but you can't be too thankful because, like people interpret, I don't know. Remember birthdays or work anniversaries. Those things are good. Again, I don't know that they're always necessary. You know, really the big thing to remember birthdays for is not, you know, so much to be like, oh, here's a little card, you know, or here's a little email. I mean, people, you know, they get it. That's nice. You know, if they, sometimes if you can work it out, if you can like give them the day off or do something else, um, you know, you can do things like that. You know, if you can provide tickets to a ball game, buy lunch for them, you know, any of those little benefits are always great. Um, It says give a book that relates to work. Most people hate reading. You know, I guess if they like to read, you know, great. But you know, give awards for longevity, like, you know, you made it for your first year or 5 year, 10 year anniversaries, things like that. Give gift certificates to local restaurants or favorite stores, and provide staff lunch. Let different people pick the locations each month, or if you bring it in, different vendors come in. Again, those don't have to be really expensive things, but they do make for, you know, like nice work environments sometimes. Um, Provide incentives and compensation. And this is only, you know, again, as a manager, that might not be within your realm. That may be like, you know, from the top down. But um, again, if you can, you know, when people get more money for performance, their performance usually goes up, and especially when they know, you know, like, okay, if you can do this, you know, if you can hit this mark or whatever, you get this. I mean, that's even better. They have numbers to shoot for. They have things that they're tangible. You know, it's kind of frustrating. You know, like in my job, we don't really have that. It's and again, the we get a raise, but we kind of, you know, the percentage raise is only somewhat dependent on like whether we're doing a good job or not. Sometimes it's dependent on how the organization's doing in general. They'll be like, oh yeah, this year we're only doing half the raises. So if you get half the raise that you got last year, that's actually 100% because the organization wasn't doing well. You know, again, it is what it is, and sometimes those things have to be done. But um, again, determine timing of payments. Shorter the time frame, it makes people happier, right? They don't like to be like, oh yeah, we're going to pay you like 3 years from now for what you did today. Great job. Again, if it's within their control, that's even better. Like I said, I don't like the fact that like most of my, you know, like a big chunk of whatever I get from a raise is determined by how everybody else is doing. Um, you know, again, it is what it is, right? Retention-based incentives, you know, especially in gyms, that's great. Like if you can have money set aside for like, you know, folks that are doing a great job keeping people, because you know, we always reward the sales staff with you know, they hit their quotas and they get their, you know, they get their bonuses and everything else. You know, they hit all their sales marks, so you know, they get compensated for that, and then if they hit other sales marks, they get bonuses on top of that, and so on and so forth. You know, with their commissions and bonus and commission bonuses. But what about the folks that are in the gym dealing with people on day to day? You know, like if there's a way you can measure that and that they're keeping people, and again, part of that's just the feedback from the folks. They're like, man, you know, I don't know if I would still come here if so and so ever left. You know, that's a good reason to give them a bonus. Okay. Um, Again, they have some contests for things like, you know, who answers the phone or housekeeping staff. I mean, yes and no. I mean, sometimes that gets a little bit hanky. I think if you can do that well, I've yet to see somebody that does that stuff well, because then it becomes this weird competition of answering phones or some other things that like you're not, I don't know, sometimes they're, you know, you don't actually help by doing that, because it's always like you're trying to just get to the phone. And if there's a competition for answering phones and you're in a position where you answer phones but you do other things, you know, you may not be helping the customer right in front of you because you want to answer the phone, right? Employee termination. So one of the things with this is you have to document everything. I'm going to kind of shorten everything that they have here. is one, the first time you've got to correct somebody, just document it, right? Even if you're like, oh, I don't think this is going to become an issue, just document it, because if it does become an issue and it does become something, you want every time that they've come into your office for some type of disciplinary action to be documented, because again, at some point, what you don't want is like, okay, we cannot keep this employee and I want them out within the next week or two. But then again, they may not be screwing up. Well, you can't go off of past stuff. You know, they're like, but they've screwed up like 30 times. Well, did you document it? No. Right. And again, you have to have that, like, and you have to have it documented that you talked to them, you have them sign that they came in, you had your conversation. So that's the thing. And again, it's great if your organization has a clear cut, you know, like we only put up with them messing up like 3 times or 5 times. Now, again, managers may have discretion of like allowing it to continue past that, but then you also have them sign a thing being like, hey, I know I've screwed up enough that you can terminate me at any time. You know, I'm past that point. But, you know, that's what you need to do. And again, you need to meet with them. You can't just write them an email, or it needs to be like, we spoke, we had our conversation, this is what it was. You write all that down or you type all that out, you have them sign it. You know, that's how you have to go about things in this day and age. All right, that's it for chapter 5. If you have any questions, just please let me know. See you in chapter 6.